In a world of high-tech gadgets and conveniences, it could be easy to dismiss old-world survival skills as unnecessary. But let's take a moment to consider this. What happens when the batteries drain, the Wi-Fi disappears, and the lights go out? Suddenly, those survival skills don't seem so outdated, do they? Our world in 2025 might be a marvel of technology and innovation, but at its core, survival hasn't changed. It's still about food, water, shelter, and warmth. It's about the primal human need to endure, to persist, and to thrive, no matter what. The truth is, our ancestors survived without the conveniences we take for granted today. They didn't have electricity to power their homes. They didn't have running water at the turn of a tap. They didn't have grocery stores stocked with food from around the world. Yet they lived, thrived, and laid the foundations for the world we live in today. And they did it all with skills that many of us have forgotten or dismissed as irrelevant in the modern age. In our high-speed, high-tech world, we've become heavily dependent on electricity, convenience, and speed. But when those things are stripped away, when the power goes out, when the grocery store shelves are empty, what then? It's in those moments that old-world survival skills become essential, knowing how to build a fire without a lighter, how to cook a meal over an open flame, how to purify water without a filter, how to grow and preserve your own food, and even how to make your own clothes and shelter. These are the skills that could mean the difference between life and death in a survival situation. So, while we marvel at our technological advancements and enjoy the conveniences they bring, let's not forget the skills of our ancestors. Let's not dismiss the importance of old-world survival skills in our modern world, because when the lights go out and the shelves are empty, these are the skills that will keep you alive. Without fire, survival becomes a daunting task. And believe it or not, fire can be more than just a source of warmth. It can be a beacon of hope, a protector against the night's lurking dangers, a chef's kitchen for cooking, and a purifier for safe drinking water. Now let's talk about how we can start a fire without modern tools. The old ways are often the best ways. The methods we'll discuss include flint and steel, fire bows, char cloth, and knowing your tinder. Flint and steel is a method as old as time. Striking flint against steel produces sparks that can light your tinder. It's a skill that requires practice, but once you get the hang of it, you'll find it's a reliable way to start a fire. Next, we have the fire bow, a primitive but effective method. This technique involves creating friction between a bow and a piece of wood until the heat ignites a small pile of tinder. It might take a bit of elbow grease, but it's a surefire way to build a flame. Char cloth, on the other hand, is a material made from fabric, such as cotton, that has been charred until it's black. This cloth can catch a spark and hold it, allowing you to transfer the spark to your tinder. Speaking of tinder, knowing your tinder is key. Dry grass, birch bark, and pine needles are all excellent choices. Remember, the drier the tinder, the easier it'll catch a spark. Now, a bonus for you. How to build a fire in wet or windy conditions. When it's wet, look for dry wood under the cover of trees or inside dead logs. In windy conditions, create a windbreak with rocks or logs. Each of these methods has its benefits and drawbacks, but they all share one thing in common. They can help you start a fire when you need it most. Building a fire in any condition is a skill that could one day save your life. When you can't just pop something in the microwave, cooking becomes a survival skill. Picture this: a crackling fire, a cast iron pan, and a hearty meal simmering away. That's the image of cooking from scratch over an open flame, a method as old as time and as effective today as it was centuries ago. Our ancestors had a deep understanding of the ingredients at their disposal, and they knew how to turn them into nourishing meals with minimal fuel and without the luxury of refrigeration. They made use of cast iron pots and Dutch ovens, which are as versatile as they are durable. These tools allow for a range of cooking techniques, from searing and sautéing to slow-cooking stews and baking bread. But it wasn't just about the tools. They also had to master the heat source itself. Cooking over an open flame is an art that requires patience and practice. It's about knowing how to control the heat, understanding when to add more wood, how to position the pot, and when to let the embers do their work. It's a dance between the fire and the cook, and when done right, it results in meals that are rich in flavor and satisfyingly hearty. And then, there's spit roasting. Imagine a large piece of meat slowly turning over a fire, its juices dripping onto the hot coals, creating a delightful aroma that fills the air. It's a simple yet effective way to cook larger cuts of meat or even whole animals. But cooking over an open flame isn't just about meat and pots. It's also about knowing how to use the resources around you. Our ancestors knew how to forage for wild plants and berries, how to catch fish and game, and how to preserve food to last through the winter months. These are the recipes and techniques that fueled frontier survival. They were born out of necessity, honed through generations, and are still just as effective today. Whether you're living off-grid, in a post-collapse scenario, or just wanting to reconnect with the roots of cooking, these recipes fueled frontier survival and can still work in your bug-out location. Water is essential to life, but safe, clean water isn't always readily available. Let's take a journey back in time to discover how our ancestors collected and purified water before the era of modern plumbing. Imagine a time before faucets, before bottled water, and before water filters. In those days, survival depended on knowing how to collect and purify water from natural sources. It's these time-tested methods that can be invaluable in a survival situation today. First, let's talk about collection. Rainwater catchment systems were a common way to collect water. This involved using large containers to capture runoff from a roof or other large surface during a rainfall. Today this method can still be used, but remember, the cleanliness of the water depends heavily on the cleanliness of the collection surface. Another method of collection was directly from streams or rivers. But remember, even the clearest stream can contain microorganisms that can make you sick, so whether you're collecting rainwater or stream water, purification is a must. Now, on to purification. Centuries ago, boiling was the go-to method. It's simple and effective. Boiling your water for at least 10 minutes can kill most types of disease-causing organisms. But what if you don't have a way to boil water? No problem. Our ancestors had a solution for that too. They used natural filtration methods like sand or charcoal to remove impurities from the water. By pouring water through a container filled with layers of sand and charcoal, they could significantly reduce the number of contaminants. And here's a bonus tip. You can create your own DIY sand and charcoal filtration system using a simple plastic bottle. Just remember, this method reduces but doesn't eliminate all potential pathogens. For full safety, always aim to boil your water if possible. These pre-plumbing methods of water collection and purification are still effective today. So, next time you find yourself in a situation where clean water isn't readily available, remember these old-world techniques. They could very well save your life. In a survival situation, food is not just a convenience, it's essential. In the era before the convenience of supermarkets and fast food, our ancestors had to rely on their ingenuity and resourcefulness to grow and preserve food. These old techniques are not just a step back in time, but a step forward in self-sufficiency and resilience. The first step is growing your own food. Victory gardens, reminiscent of the First and Second World Wars, are a testament to the power of self-sufficiency. Gardeners of yesteryears knew the value of heirloom seeds, varieties passed down through generations, prized for their adaptability, flavor, and resilience. These seeds not only ensure a robust harvest, but also protect biodiversity in an era dominated by genetically modified crops. Crop rotation was another ingenious method used by our ancestors to maintain soil fertility, prevent disease, and maximize yield. This method is still used by serious preppers and organic farmers today. Once the harvest is in, it's time to preserve the bounty. Root cellars were once common fixtures in homes, providing a cool, dark place to store root vegetables and canned goods. Canning, a method of preserving food by sealing it in airtight containers, is another age-old technique that's just as relevant today. Dehydrating, smoking, and fermenting are other traditional methods of food preservation that require no electricity and little equipment, making them perfect for off-grid living. But preservation wasn't just about storage. It was also about enhancing the flavor and nutritional value of the food. Fermentation, for instance, not only extends the shelf life of food but also enhances its nutritional value by promoting the growth of beneficial bacteria. Growing and preserving food like our ancestors did can provide a sustainable food source when there's no backup. These methods require some knowledge and effort, but the payoff is a pantry full of homegrown, nutritious food that can sustain you and your family in times of need. In the face of uncertainty, these age-old practices offer a sense of security and independence that modern conveniences just can't match. Before pharmacies, our ancestors relied on the land for healing. They didn't have the luxury of over-the-counter medication or prescriptions. Instead, they turned to nature, harnessing the medicinal properties of plants and herbs to treat various ailments. This knowledge was passed down through generations, and it remains as relevant today as it was back then. Understanding the healing power of nature is more than just a fascinating insight into our past, it's a critical survival skill. In a post-collapse scenario, access to conventional medicine may be limited or non-existent. That's when the ability to identify, grow, and use medicinal plants becomes a lifesaver. Let's take a journey through the natural apothecary of our ancestors. Willow bark, for instance, was used as a natural pain reliever. It contains salicin, a compound similar to the active ingredient in aspirin. Yarrow was another staple of the ancient medicine cabinet. Known for its antiseptic properties, it was often used to treat wounds and prevent infection. Then there's comfrey, a plant known for its ability to speed up the healing process of sprains, fractures, and bruises. It's no wonder it was commonly referred to as knit bone or bone set. These are just a few examples of the medicinal plants that our ancestors relied on. Today we have the advantage of scientific research to back up these ancient remedies. We know that many of these plants do, in fact, possess significant medicinal properties. So how can you incorporate this knowledge into your own survival strategy? Start by learning to identify these plants in the wild. Then consider growing your own medicinal herb garden. Not only will this provide you with a renewable source of natural remedies, but it can also be a rewarding and therapeutic hobby. Preserving these herbs is the next step. This may involve drying them, making tinctures, or creating salves. The method you choose will depend on the plant and its intended use. Having a homemade apothecary or herbal first aid kit is a must for every prepper. It's a way of ensuring that, no matter what happens, you have the means to treat common ailments and injuries. Remember, in a survival situation, every bit of knowledge counts. And when it comes to natural medicine, that knowledge could be the difference between life and death. Without a store to provide ready-made solutions, shelter and clothing become a matter of survival. In the modern world, we often take for granted the ease with which we can purchase a new jacket or set up a tent. But what happens when those conveniences are stripped away? It's time to turn to the tried and true methods of old. Imagine the pioneers of the past crafting clothing from the materials at hand. They made and mended their own clothes not only as a matter of economy but as a matter of survival. They sewed patches onto worn-out trousers, darned holes in socks, and even crafted shoes from animal hide. These skills may seem archaic today, but in a world without stores, they become invaluable. Now consider the importance of shelter. In the wild, a sturdy, weatherproof shelter can mean the difference between life and death. Our forebears knew how to build such shelters using only hand tools and the materials they found in nature. They built log cabins, lean-tos, and even underground dugouts to protect themselves from the elements. They didn't have the luxury of modern tents or sleeping bags, but they made do with what they had, and they survived. But survival isn't just about making and mending, it's also about repurposing and reusing. A worn-out blanket becomes a coat, a broken tool becomes a knife, an empty can becomes a pot. In a world without convenience stores, every item has potential, every scrap has value. This mindset, this skill set, is not just about survival, it's about resilience. It's about taking what you have and making it work, no matter what. It's about seeing potential where others see waste and finding solutions where others see problems. So, the next time you throw away a torn shirt or discard a bent nail, think twice. Could you mend that shirt? Could you straighten that nail? In a survival situation, these are the skills that can save your life. Because when the world as we know it changes, knowing how to repair, repurpose, and reuse what you have is a valuable skill. Survival isn't just about having the right skills, it's about having the right mindset. Imagine standing in the wild, stripped of modern comforts, facing the raw elements with nothing but your wits and will. This is the reality our ancestors endured, and it's the mindset that we must cultivate. It's not the tools in your hand, but the grit in your heart that truly matters. Grit is the unwavering determination to see things through, no matter how challenging. It's the force that makes you get up when you've been knocked down. The determination to keep going when everything inside you screams to stop. This trait was a lifeline in the old days, the hidden strength that turned survivors into thrivers. Adaptability is another key component of the survival mindset. In a world constantly shifting, being rigid is a recipe for disaster. Our ancestors knew this well. They adapted to changing seasons, migrating herds, and unpredictable weather patterns. They embraced change as a constant companion, not an enemy. Endurance, the ability to withstand hardship or stress, is a cornerstone of survival. Think of the pioneers, trudging through harsh winters, battling diseases and facing starvation. They endured, holding on to hope, driven by the dream of a better tomorrow. Remaining calm under pressure is another vital survival trait. When a situation spirals out of control, panic is your worst enemy. Our forebears understood the power of a calm mind. They faced perilous situations with a cool head, making rational decisions when it mattered most. Finally, remember that survival isn't a solitary journey. Our ancestors survived as communities, sharing resources, skills, and responsibilities. The lone wolf may survive, but the pack thrives. Learning from people who survived without a safety net can help build a survival mindset for today's world. As we look back on these time-tested attitudes, it's clear that they still hold value in our modern age. In a world that is increasingly unpredictable, cultivating a survival mindset is not just advisable, it's essential. In the high-tech world of 2025, it may seem like old-world survival skills are outdated. But as we've explored, when modern systems fail and the conveniences we've grown accustomed to disappear, it's these timeless abilities that truly matter. Fire building, cooking from scratch, water purification, food preservation, natural medicine, shelter construction, and clothing repair, these are the skills that our ancestors relied upon. They've stood the test of time, proving their worth in countless scenarios where the comforts of the modern world were absent. These old-world skills provide a foundation of self-reliance and adaptability, essential traits for any prepper anticipating a post-collapse or SHTF situation. They're not just about surviving, but thriving in challenging conditions. So, while we embrace the advancements of our age, let's not forget the wisdom of the past. These skills aren't just nostalgia, they're insurance for the hard times ahead. So what's the one old-world survival skill you still use or want to learn? The journey of survival is a lifelong one, and every skill you learn makes you that much more prepared. We want to hear from you, so don't be shy. Drop a comment below. Want to keep the conversation going? Hit that like button and let's make this a survival skills hub for everyone. Remember, knowledge is power, and in this case, it could be the power to survive. So if you found this video helpful, why not share it with someone who might also benefit? While you're at it, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future survival tips and tricks. Remember, the more you know, the more prepared you'll be. So keep learning, keep preparing, and stay safe out there.